Thank you all for being here and for your testimony. I'd like to start with you, President Daniels, if I could. Our current stock of debt will undoubtedly be a significant burden on future generations. But the extent of that burden, how significant it is, I think really will depend on one critical factor, and that is whether, even though we're accumulating debt, whether we're, regardless of the fact that we're continuing to accumulate some debt, the real economy continues to be supported by a growing productive capital stock. In other words, our own economic growth is crucial to how we weather this. But there's a lot of reason to be concerned about this because, as you're aware, I'm worried about the fact that not only are we driving up the government's debt with costly decisions in Washington, but the current regulatory environment seems to be dampening growth, so that the debt burden on our kids is going to be heavy, is going to be that much heavier. And private investment has been falling recently, and that increases the risks as well. So, it's one thing to hand over, let's compare it to a business. It's one thing to hand over a business to your kids with the corporate credit card maxed out, with a steady income stream and a growing income stream going into the business. That's one thing, but it's another thing to hand them that same credit card without a thriving, growing business. So I'm really hopeful that my children and other millennials understand this dynamic and understand the severity of the potential burden they could face. So I wanted to ask you, as a university president, as someone who works with and serves millennials, do you think the current generation, our current generation of college students, understands the urgency of the situation and the burden they'll face? And is our current model for higher education adequately preparing students to face those challenges?
Well, Purdue University is.
Exactly. That went without saying,
yeah.
Other than
now,
Purdue.
No, I don't think they understand at all what awaits them. Even if we act decisively, I don't think they understand that. And as I said earlier, it bothers me that as they inevitably come to see it, that they will feel that we didn't serve them well, and that they'll suspect not just those of us who might have done something about it, but the whole system, which somehow, as the skeptics of history have said, will government by consent of the governed has inherent problems. As someone said, it's a lot easier to make promises than to pay for them.
Sure.
So I do worry about that. Yet I have to tell you, you would expect me to say this, I guess, but the young people, at least those who make it to campuses like ours, are incredibly talented, incredibly purposeful. They're very innovative. They're going to devise ways to make our economy more productive that I'm not capable of envisioning. I have every confidence in that, but that doesn't lead me to a blind faith that the economy that they produce will be able to sustain the burdens we've placed on it.
One of the things that I do worry about millennials and about all generations of Americans, for that matter, relates to what could happen in the sort of doomsday scenario that keeps me up late at night, the scenario in which we suddenly find that our interest rates return to their historical average. Even assuming there's no rebound, reflecting the fact that we've been significantly below that historical average for the last few years, even if there's no rebound, when the interest rates return to their historical average, what does that do to us? What practical consequence does that have for our government?
Well, Dr. Rivlin can give you the update, but last I checked on the sensitivities of this, every 1% above what we're expecting is about $1 trillion over 10 years. And so if you return to normal, which would be a few percent over what's now projected, you can see how much you've added to the problem. It's only, as I said, there are a lot of assumptions in our forward forecasting that I think are too cheerful, and that's one of them.
Yeah, I see my time's expired, and I wish I had more time to explore this with Dr. Rivlin and Senator Gregg, but I thank you for being here, and I'd just add to that it's, you know, our interest payment on our debt has been relatively stable over the last 20 years, been in the range of $250 billion a year or so, notwithstanding the fact that our actual debt has increased 6 or 7-fold during that time period. So the only reason our interest payment has remained more or less the same is that we're in this odd valley where our interest rates are at all-time historic unnatural lows, and that scares me to death. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Dr. Adams.